Welcome to the HR Chat Show, one of the world's most downloaded and shared podcasts designed for HR pros, talent execs, tech enthusiasts, and business leaders. For hundreds more episodes and what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit HRgazette.com.
Welcome to another episode of the HR Chat Show. Hello, listeners. This is your host today, Bill Banham. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking with, for the first time on the show, Mr. Fantastic, Robbie Jones, CEO over at DCE and Global Advisor for HR Tech People and Culture Platforms. Robbie has spent much of his career at the intersection of HR tech and events, helping create spaces where senior HR leaders can learn from one another, discover new solutions, and build meaningful partnerships. After leading some of the HR industry's best-known event brands, Robbie is now the CEO and co-founder of Centurion Events, the team behind the Leaders Summit for HR and People, which is a new international series of invitation-led events designed specifically for senior HR and people executives. This event series is expanding across the UK. So the first event, which is happening in September, is at Lord's. What a venue. And then they're going to be in Canada alongside myself. Thank you very much, Robbie. We'll talk about that later. At Falls View Casino and the Power Station in Niagara. What a venue. And beyond, they're going to be going all over the place. And they have an emphasis on curated experiences, executive level networking, collaborative discussions, and practical conversations around leadership, transformation, AI, of course, we can't get away from AI, and the future of work. Rather than focusing on crowded exhibition halls, the events aim to create an environment where HR leaders and solution providers can have deeper, more valuable conversations. And Robbie joins the HR Chat podcast today to share his thinking behind the new events, what makes them different from traditional HR conferences, and why he believes that the industry is ready for a fresh approach to bringing together HR leaders from around the world. Robbie Jones, how are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
I'm okay. I'm a big fan of the podcast, so very honored to be on here and chatting with you, Bill. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the HR Chat Podcast. If you enjoy the audio content we produce, you'll love our articles on the HR Gazette. Learn more at HRgazette.com. And now, back to the show.
Thank you very much. And everything I just mentioned there, of course, in the intro are things that I'm passionate about. Local, regular listeners of this show will know that I also get involved with doing various events, including lots of the Disrupt summits in the UK and Ireland, in the US, and I do other bits and pieces in Toronto. So this is something I'm very much looking forward to. Let's get into it, Robbie. You've built a career around bringing together HR leaders and tech providers, of course. Tell me a bit about your professional journey and what inspired you to launch Centurion Events and the Leaders Summit for HR and People.
Yeah, so I worked in the exhibitions, large-scale trade show sector for 15 years, lots of both pleasure and pain along the way, along that journey. And I suppose my most recent role and my entry into the HR space was launching a show alongside a brilliant expo guy called Nick Powell at Closer Still Media. We launched a show called HR Technologies UK alongside a brilliant show called Learning Technologies UK with thousands of people attending on the edge of London at London Excel, which was a fantastic experience at the time. I then quit my career in trade shows to go and be on the other side of the table and actually become a sales and marketing leader for an HR tech vendor who are also a healthcare company called Adagio VR, which is an unbelievable futuristic approach to sort of clinical mental health and well-being in the workplace and high performance, run by a fellow at the Royal College of Psychiatrists and a consultant with the United Nations, so really special organization. And my job there was to take an HR tech vendor from a startup through to a scale up business development. And we did it, but really not with much help from the exhibits that we did as an organization. And it was the first time in my life that I was able to understand a lot of the feedback that I'd received for a decade or more from exhibitors in this space. who can sometimes understandably feel very frustrated, whether it's lack of return on investment or brand awareness opportunities or seniority in a room. So I came up with an idea, and this is how every startup begins, but I came up with an idea for a new formula, a new approach to event organizing that better suited the leadership, both from a practitioner side of things for HR leaders around the world, but also for those vendors who need that return on investment and need to justify what they're doing and execute their brand objectives.
I'm going to stop you there, Robbie. I'm going to stop you there because actually that's quite a new lead into my next question before you give the full game away. And that's around what is the USP. There are obviously already plenty of HR conferences out there. What gap did you feel existed in that market, and what makes the Leaders Summit for HR and People genuinely different from more traditional events?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's three ways to answer this question. I suppose the first is that the first category of event that is best known to everyone is the large scale trade show, which was the one I was always most familiar with. Issue that a large scale trade event organizer has when it comes to this space is that it's very different from a big yield focused event where you've got packaging or retail hardware or products, food, drink, stuff that needs to be physically demonstrated at an event. Our industry is increasingly so much more focused on, if not technology, then actually even less than that on strategy and in conversations about how to transform culture and workflow processes. So the challenge that those large scale trade event organizers have, of course, is that increasingly what we see is that senior HR practitioners will send junior staff on a learning mission, which is fab for those junior professionals trying to develop their career, or they can be great job recruitment playgrounds. But less and less do you have people that are actually making decisions and transforming the future of work, who can traipse out to a big venue on the edge of a city somewhere for a day or two. It's a huge ask, and it's just not happening, as I found when I was at Adagio VR exhibiting. So that's the one aspect. The second aspect is, yes, there are smaller, more intimate focused events, but most of those are either fabulous parties or very small tabletop events in kind of old hotels. And what we wanted to do finally, I suppose the third aspect, is to create that ROI ring-fenced senior leadership identity to an HR event model, so that we can actually change the world for the better through the people attending our events. And secondly, do it in a way that is iconic. All of our events are in, you've mentioned Niagara Falls and Lord's Cricket Ground, but in natural or historic civilized wonders of our world, where people will never forget the conversations that they have when they bond, never forget the experiences they have at a party either. And that iconic message is so important when we look at HR tech now, and you see ServiceNow being advertised by celebrities on television. You see, Formula One, Workday everywhere, on the caps of, PGA Tour winners in golf. It's high time that the events space in HR tech had that level of glamour, or for want of a worse or better word, sexiness to what these brand ambassadors are trying to achieve and keeping up with the world.
I just got to say, one thing that I loved from that answer there is we do our events at Wonders of the World. I thought that was brilliant. Hey, just between two guys who organize events in the HR space, one thing that I keep hearing from people, and I think it's showing itself at certainly the disrupt events that I organize, is it seems like there's an interesting window of time at the moment, maybe taking us through to 2030-ish, something like that, where a few years ago, a lot of the senior HR folks maybe wouldn't come to an event unless it was an association event, a CIPD, an HRPA, a SHRM, those sorts of events. But right now, what I'm seeing, Robbie, and I'd love to get your take on this, is actually they're much more willing to come out there and do that networking. Partly, I suspect, because they're terrified for their jobs. Everything's being replaced by AI. We've already seen the first fully AI company, of course. And therefore, they need to get out there. They need to network. They need to make sure they've got opportunities to move into different roles, or indeed move into consulting. Are you seeing that? Is there kind of a different attitude towards non-association HR-related events at the moment?
100%. It's actually related to one of the big topics within HR, which is to do with, remote, hybrid, and in-person working. In as far as a big challenge that people have had, and it's a post-COVID hangover, is trust. And if you look at what's happening with AI as an accelerative and very unknown concept to someone who's worked in HR their whole life, is now a leader. It's what does my job now look like? How can I speak to other people who are in the same position as I am, who might have the same sleepless nights or brilliant opportunities that are ahead of them? They just don't know what to do with it. And I think that's the beauty of a model like this, is obviously people do want to come together, but they want to be alongside peers, and they want to be able to bring each other up into that place. There's another aspect to it, Bill, as well, which is that, and it's got nothing to do with vanity or narcissism or anything like that. It's to do with professional ambition and exposure, and people wanting to become successful leaders in their industry. LinkedIn is an amazing platform for it. We live in a very online world, and that bleeds into the in-person side actually really well, because a lot of those leading HR practitioners, leading HR tech vendors, they want to be seen to be the thought leader in that particular area and be alongside their peers. So there has to be a way for people to have productive conversations in, for example, elevated think tanks, on keynote stages, where they're ring-fenced alongside each other, and not just being nominated or awarded at influencer and awards type ceremonies, which are also important but serve a very different purpose.
Okay, excellent. Let's talk a bit about what your delegates can expect at the event at Lords, and indeed the fabulous event that I'll be involved with in Niagara. I don't want to lean you guys towards either one, but it'd be nice to hang out with you people in Niagara. I'm just saying. So the format is quite.
Yeah, sure. I'll sort of talk you through how the events are structured, and please, it's not similar to a kind of a traditional events formula in this aspect. We approach our events very much as leadership community-led events, right? So, we're Double Centurion Events. That's the name of our organization. We look to have 200 senior executives at every conference that we run around the world for that market. We treat those delegates the way they should have been treated for a long time when they go to events. Beautifully catered for, gifted, all of those things that are actually relevant and come back to their own roles in HR as well, and making the workplace better. And on a educational note, and in terms of fixing perhaps problems in organizations and gaps in their own jobs and in their own thinking, we basically put on 3 different elements of our 2-day conference. The first is a networking and exhibition area of the event. This is extremely important. Typically, when you arrive at an event as an HR practitioner, you're faced with 200 exhibition stands. You're faced with sort of 500 different seminars to choose from. We've got rid of all of that. There's no spamming. There's no sense of trying to work out arriving in that chaos and how does this work for me in my job. When people arrive at Lord's Cricket Ground or at Niagara Falls, the first thing they're greeted by is actually people like Bill Banham, people like Ben Eubanks, people like Perry Timms, Gethin, like so many others. We're really lucky who really have got behind this concept as the future of HR conferences. And they're greeted by these thought leaders who are able to provide that concierge from the beginning. And this goes back to the reason we built this organization. People don't care what an exhibition organizer, an event organizer like myself has to say to them about HR necessarily, but we're putting all of the right people in front of them that do know exactly how they should be spending their time at an event. So that concierge element is super important, and that will guide them through the agenda, as well as the exhibition networking area. We have these elevated think tanks where we have so many leading practitioners already who are signed up to both events, who will be leading subjects from the compliance and implementation of AI through to more controversial titles like why well-being sucks and having a proper clinically underpinned approach to mental health and high performance in the workplace. And also another topic, which is fantastic for these individuals, which is what do you do after you finish as an HR leader as well, and what are the next steps in life, and how can you keep being fulfilled along your professional journey right to the end. And a lot of people struggle with that thought. And we have lots of people at our event that are there to give that career guidance as well as fix company challenges.
Okay, love it. We are flying through this conversation today, which is good because we've only got 5 minutes left. Let's make it count. So here's me. I'm about to get mean, like I sometimes do in these episodes, where I'll start challenging you to answer in. Let's do 60 seconds or less for the next one. Okay, so in 60 seconds or less, and I think it's kind of a recap of some of the things we've already said. So in 60 seconds or less, Mr. Jones, who should be attending these events then? What kinds of HR people and leaders, technology providers and partners will our listeners today have the opportunity to meet and build relationships with? Yeah,
so 2 types of attendees at our events. The first, which we call sponsors, are HR tech vendors right across the 5 key pillars or challenges in an organization, from operations, workflow, payroll, etc., through to talent recruitment, through to learning and development, onboarding, well-being as well, and employee engagement. But as I said earlier, it's not 200, 300, 400, 500 exhibitors. Our mission is not one of yield for its own sake. We want to put the best people and the most innovative products in front of you, and not have people pull you off a floor and sell to you, but actually to have really constructive conversations around tables, around how to fix those challenges. So on the one hand, you've got the sponsors who are going to do a great job of that, product managers, the best in design for HR tech in the world. And then on the other side, most of the attendees at the event, of course, are HR practitioners. Day one at Lords is dedicated to chief people officers, HR directors, CHROs. And day 2, the agenda is built around sort of C-suite -2. So heads of learning and development, HR, payroll, employee engagement, DEI. So people that are on that journey to become, the next C-suite, the future C-suite of the industry. Those are the 2 biggest profiles. And obviously we work with some partners as well who are incredible consultants and thought leaders to help all of you practitioners out there. And so you can spend some proper quality time and unpaid for in terms of those consultancy services over the course of that day or 2. And that's critical.
Okay, excellent. I had so many more questions that I wanted to ask you today, Robbie. However, we do have a little sweet spot of about 22, 23 minutes for this particular show. And I had a very long intro. Sorry, listeners. So just one more question for you for today. And that's, how can folks connect with you, Robbie? So is that LinkedIn? Do you want to share your email address? I bet you're super cool and all over TikTok and places. And of course, for those listeners today who may be interested in attending or speaking or sponsoring, or simply they want to learn more about the Leaders Summit for HR and People, where should they go and what can they expect over the coming months?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually not that cool in terms of we try not to bombard people in their personal lives. So we're very much focused, and lots of people on here will have come across us on LinkedIn because we have a huge amount of engagement on there. So the Leaders Summit for HR and People is the page for all our events. And my name's Robbie Jones. I'm the CEO of Double Centurion Events, the organizer. So best way is to get in touch on LinkedIn or by email at robbie@doublecenturionevents.com, and we look forward to supporting you.
Look at that. We've still got about a minute to go. So actually, I'm just going to throw in one more question. Robbie, where did the name Double Centurion Events come from?
Well, it's 200. Well, it's because it's sort of 200 people per event, I suppose. And we do quite a lot of, we wanted to create a name where, all being well, we can create a kind of a legacy. So, we gift bags where all of our members, the HR practitioners that come to our events, will have their own legacy number from which number person they were to come to any of our events, with each double century that comes and goes with all of our events. And there's a connection to cricket there as well. So yeah, we're our inaugural event is at Lord's Cricket Ground, and Graham, my co-founder, and I are big fans of the sport. So yeah.
For our North American listeners, that's baseball, but they have a funny stick. Okay, well, that just leaves me to say for today, Robbie Jones, I'm sure this won't be the last time, but for today, thank you very much for being my guest on the HR Chat Pod.
Legend. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
And listeners, as always, until next time, happy working.
Thanks for listening to the HR Chat Show. If you enjoyed this episode, why not subscribe and listen to some of the hundreds of episodes published by HR Gazette? And remember, for what's new in the world of work, Subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.